Hello YouTube and welcome back to the channel outside the target demographic. Today I'm going to be showing you a new tool I added to my EDC bag, and that is a battery powered soldering iron. Let's get started. In my line of profession, I am a medical equipment repair guy. So ultrasounds and infusion pumps and defibrillators and all sorts of things. We test them, confirm functionality, determine if things are broken, sometimes replace parts, all that stuff. I also do some modifications and upgrades to my cars and riding mower and a bunch of things that occasionally need some rewiring throughout the course of my usage with them. So this guy is a battery powered soldering iron. It comes in a pretty decent kit. Got the instruction manual. We have the iron itself. I added a piece of heat shrink here. Gives me a known location to index my fingers on. Also through my testing from here forward gets quite hot, as that's the part that connects onto the metal tip that heats up hot enough to melt lead, as it turns out. So I added a little bit of heat shrink there. It also gives me the added benefit of high contrast. You'll notice that's a common theme with my videos. No, I'm not blind, but it does help. If it's on a white surface, a white carpet, something like that, you have the black item itself that will help you find it. And then if you drop it in the grass or something, you have a yellow index that will help you locate it. I also provide you a spool of solder, and we'll come back to that for the second purpose. A USB-C charging cable. So this is battery powered. It does charge off of and run off of asterisk a USB-C cable. We have a holder. Flip this guy up. When this is hot, it now keeps the tip away from any material that could accidentally melt or burn or catch fire or something like that. You also have a sponge that you would add water to, and you would scrape your tip across it to clean it up a little bit in between solders. And then it comes with the tip itself. I got additional larger heat shrink and a little section, maybe a foot of solder that I have wrapped around itself a couple of times. Bent it into a J shape. This will hook onto here. This will go onto here. And this will go in there, and it kind of makes it a nice small package to add to my EDC bag, and I have essentially everything I need with the added benefit of 2 pieces of heat shrink should the need arise. Comes with the one tip, and it does seem to be proprietary. I don't know. This is the first one I bought, but you can tell that there's a brass insert there. Insulated with some plastic, and then this guy would probably be your negative contact. That would be your positive, right? I did have to lock down this nut pretty good. This part right here, just those threads, is its own individual unit item, and that will thread into here. And should the nut be loosened enough, you can actually take this tip off and swap them out with different ones. I don't know why I would need a different one. I assume once this one gets worn out. I imagine they would have different surfaces. This one seemed to work well enough in my testing. But I did have to put a rubber band around this, use pliers to hold it in place, and then torque that nut down to make it where I can do this. So now, tool-free, I can thread this on and off, which was not the case before. So overall, you're looking at about 6 inches fully assembled, 4 inches for just the iron, which would put this at about 2. Hey, math. So it's actually pretty compact. If we stand it upright, we're looking at a 1/2 inch diameter. So relatively small, very lightweight. We have some writing here. Soldering iron, USB battery, 8 watt capacity, made in China, of course. Again, Temu purchase. Does not look like the battery can be accessed or replaced without destroying it, which for, what did I pay for this? Was it $6, $8? Wasn't more than 10. I don't really see that I would be rebuilding this guy. I had an asterisk before, you may recall. That asterisk was, this said in the advertising that it will run off of a USB cable, and actually says right here, multiple power supply modes. Bit of a misnomer on that one. I did run this dead. I charged it with a 2 amp input USB cable and let it charge for about 10 minutes. I think it was 5 minutes. And then I tried turning it on and it would flash, indicating that it knew I was telling it to do something, and then it would die. So the way I would see it is more of a, you can prevent a fully charged battery from fully discharging as fast by having a USB cable connected. All that to say, when you use a longer USB cable, you can charge this up, plug it in, leave it plugged into the charger, and you're going to be able to use this guy substantially longer than if you used it on battery. There are 3 different modes with this. In order to turn it on, push and hold. It's going to flash. Give it a tap. You start at green. Green is the lowest temperature. It's 230 degrees. Hit it again. Blue gives us 250 degrees. And red is the highest temperature setting of 250 degrees. That is measured from, I had the tip on, I had a essentially meat thermometer directly on the tip, so not across, blammo, gravity spike, not across the whole device, just at the tip, giggity, where it's hottest. And I ran it for about 5 minutes in between temperature changes. We're looking at 230 degrees for green, 250 for blue, and 250 for red. Being the nerd that I am, I went ahead to the next level. I let it charge up all the way. I connected a cable to it, and I figured if it was getting the battery capacity plus 2 additional amps being pushed in at all times, that it would be able to possibly push it up to higher temperatures, right? So, turns out, no. Battery powered, you have 230, 250, 250, and with a cable connected, we have 230, 250, 250. So, you're going to get the same temperatures, which honestly is ideal, right? Instead of getting a 10, 20, 30% temperature gain by having a cable connected, you know that it's actually pretty consistent, especially since it was less than $10. You would think that the circuit board and circuitry and design and all that, as small as it would have to be, right, to fit into this form factor, would maybe be less regulated. But it looks like they took the time and made sure that it was. During that testing, I got about 20 minutes of runtime with the battery only. Now, to be fair, that was cycling between 5 minutes on green, 5 minutes on blue, 5 minutes on red. So there were temperature changes. There would be more power being used to bump it from 230 up to 250. But 20 minutes to be working underneath a dashboard or resoldering something on the motorcycle, not having to move the vehicle over to the garage and run a 50-foot long extension cable to have a, twice as long soldering iron with a cable connected to it. So now you have to make sure, just like a vacuum cleaner, you don't snag it on something as you're trying to get into where you're trying to get into. Pretty sweet. Couple other things we have of note. The power button, I like that it's high contrast. Again, that's a thing that I'm discovering if you guys haven't. High contrast. So you have a black body with a silver button. Pretty nice. You can notice it's proud. So that's saying if I were to roll this and it were a flat surface, it would stop on that power button. So it is proud. So you could accidentally bump this in a pocket. Now you'll notice pushing it does not turn it on. Pushing and holding for 3 seconds turns it on and turns it off. So not as big of a deal depending on what you're doing. This is going to be in a bag. That bag has a bunch of other contents that are going to be shifting around by the sheer fact that it's a bag. So something could accidentally bump up against this. Another benefit to that is the heat shrink adds to the diameter of the chassis here. So now The reason, as I'm talking to you, it looks like I'm a liar in that this is not stopping is because it was stopping on that button when I did not have this heat shrink on there. The heat shrink is actually a little more proud than that button, so it will continue rolling and not accidentally hit that button, which is a benefit to me. That's, again, you could do any color you want. You could put black on here. You could not use it at all, whichever works best for you. Again, 3 seconds on, 3 seconds off. According to the manual and in my testing, it's about a 10-minute auto sleep. So you turn this on, all of a sudden your kid starts screaming for the reason that kids start screaming. You leave the room. Within 10 minutes, this guy will power itself off and start cooling that tip down to prevent any kind of accidental heating in the room that you were not anticipating. So that's a pretty nice feature. Again, 20 to 30 minutes of runtime on this guy on battery power, which is more than I would need it to be. Let's see what else we have. Powers when dead pass through USB-C. So it does run on USB-C. It will turn on when you have a USB cable connected to it. Again, it may not run very long. So it's technically it can be powered off of a USB cable. I feel like that's a bit of a misnomer, or should be worded a little better, I suppose. So you can, as I've said before, run it on a cable with a fully charged battery for a substantially longer time than you could run it on a USB cable with a dead battery, which tells me it doesn't necessarily run off of a USB cable, right? The other thing, this spool of probably not lead solder has a hole in the middle. That hole in the middle will act as the same thing as this, so now you don't have to carry that around, right? Because now the tip is probably 1.5 inches off the ground. This one's going to roll. I suppose if you wanted to, you could shave one of those surfaces flat, and now that's going to act as a way to not allow your hot stick to roll and hit you or hit, whatever you're working on, kind of thing. But pretty nifty that they doubled up the functionality of that. And then the last thing I have is it takes about 2.5 hours to charge from completely dead. And that was with the 2 amp input charger. Now that I think about it, we'll put that up close for you guys. You can pause the video if that is of interest to you. It doesn't say not to use a 2 amp or high wattage charger, which is something I'm seeing more and more with these electronic devices. 10-minute automatic sleep, blah, blah, blah. It actually says right here, after being fully charged, it can be used for about 30 minutes at a time. It supports the use of a charging bank and mobile phone charger. So you can charge this from a USB battery pack. You can use this connected to a battery pack as you are using it. You can connect it to a USB-C cable inside your car's cigarette outlet or charging cable. So as you're working in your car with your car, you're using your car to run this, which is pretty nifty. Bunch of different uses for this. You can use it as a desktop guy or as a mobile in the field guy, which is a benefit to me and might be a benefit to you. This is a USB battery pack I picked up. When you plug this in, you'll see that there's a red LED. So indication that it is both getting power and charging. I'm pretty sure that either cuts out or turns green. I forget which one. I feel like this one was green. A different device just cut out. But you will be able to see that you're getting power, and you can run this off of a battery pack, granted with a longer cable, or a wall charger, or your cigarette outlet, or the built-in battery, or. Just a very utilitarian item, in my estimation. I was able to use this to solder together wires pretty well. The 250 degree, and that's Celsius, by the way, would heat up the copper wires well enough that I was able to solder it, we'll say correctly, versus I had a circuit board about this big. It had a big transformer and capacitors and stuff on it. I needed to put this on the highest setting, put it on the solder contact, almost had to flip it over. I felt like that helped push some of the heat into it. And I had to put a pair of pliers on the item on the other side of the board, prying it as I heated up that contact. And I mean, it took 45 seconds to finally melt a glob of solder, maybe that big, not the smallest. It would help if I didn't do that over a black box. Maybe about that big of a solder contact point. And there is a lot of solder on there, to be fair. But all that to say, consider this more hobbyist doing wires versus building circuit boards and, computers and stuff like that. So it's a bicycle. It will get you places quickly. It's relatively light. Don't take it on the highway. So that's what we got. I have been bitten by the Temu bug, and it is as infectious as that virus of unknown origin, substantially cheaper in my life, as it turns out. But this is something that is of use to me. Maybe it's of use to you guys. Again, soldering auxiliary lighting on vehicles and adding modulators to brake lights and stuff like that. There have been a couple of projects that I've just flat out, I'd really like to, it's not worth finding the soldering iron and going and running a extension cable and trying to hold up the weight of that cable as I solder a very small, it's just not worth it. So as soon as I saw this come across the Temu listing, I knew that I needed to add it to my kit. Wanted to show it to you guys to see if you should add it to your kit. So as always, I appreciate you guys stopping by. Any questions, comments, concerns you have, go ahead and leave them in the comments section below. This is outside the target demographic. I will catch you guys in the next video.